minute, Jack. This is a friendly celebration.
I don't much like the way you celebrate.
So welcome everybody to 4 Men in America. We're coming to you from Arizona and Florida, USA. And I have with me Paul Fitch, Jeff Ooch is on today, and Zack Taylor. And I wanted to start out today by asking you guys if you had to pick one thing that you're most happy about with the first 6 months of the Trump administration, what would it be? And let me admit Ken here, he's coming on. So we're going to have 5 men today.
All right.
So whoever wants to start first, and we'll get Ken on here, and then we'll get going.
So limiting to the one thing, the one best thing.
The one best thing that you like about, kind of your most favorite thing that he's done the first 6 months that you're happy about, pleased with.
I'll be thinking while somebody else knows what they want to say.
Okay.
I know what I want to say.
Yeah, this is Ken.
Hi, Ken. We don't have your video, but we got your sound.
Well, I'm in my car. We lost our internet at home, and I'm having all kinds of problems with Sparklight trying to get it reestablished. So I'm in the car, and I'm just going to have to do it this way. But I know what I think is the best in the first 6 months. But let's have Paul go. Okay.
All right, Paul, get going.
All right. I think the best thing that Donald J. Trump has done in his second administration is bring on Karoline Leavitt as his press secretary.
Oh.
After watching the spider-headed black lesbian and Jen Psaki, who couldn't remember from one lie to the next what it was she had to cover for what's his name. Karoline Leavitt is to me the perfect person in the perfect place at the perfect time, and she is so calm and so cool, and you can't even question what she's saying. It comes out. Now, she may be an accomplished liar, I don't know, but it sure sounds good, and it's so much better than what we've been trying to put up with the press secretary. And that's very important, because the press secretary is the president's face to the world. Every day she's talking to the press, whether he is or not. And she conveys a good impression, and she tells his story very well. So that's what I believe. Now, there are, of course, other things that are important, but that to me is the biggie.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. One of them I'd throw in there too. Another name I'd throw out there, I think Tammy Bruce is doing a good job at the State Department too. If you've watched any of her press conferences. She gets to handle Andrea Mitchell every time she has a press conference, which is, I'm sure she really enjoys. So who's next? Zach?
This is Ken. I'll go.
Okay, Ken, go ahead.
I think the best thing is securing the border.
Can't argue with that.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. To me, securing the border as quickly and as completely as it seems to have been done is the biggest star I put on his report card.
Huh. Yeah.
Very good. Can't argue with that one. So, Zach, what do you think? What's your favorite?
We don't have a country. We don't have a country if we don't have a border.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And there are, trillions of dollars of costs and stuff that happens when we have this many illegals in the country, and you're fighting to figure out who's who and whether they qualify, for public assistance, and it just illegal immigration just explodes into so many areas: money, public safety. I just don't think we have a country unless we have control of our borders, and so I think that's the biggest thing that's happened positive so far.
Yeah, and the first thing he had to do was to stop the influx, right? And they've done a remarkable job at doing that. I think. And okay, so Zack, what do you think? What's your favorite moment? What's your most favorite thing that he's done in 6 months?
Well, I need to qualify my answer a little bit. I was a Border Patrol agent for over 26 years on the Arizona and Texas border. And after that, I was chairman of the National Association of Former Border Patrol Officers. And we lobbied Congress. That was our job, to try and get them to do what needed to be done about illegal immigration. And we worked with Tom Coburn in particular, and a few other senators and congressmen, trying to convince them that the border was important, but the main draw for the aliens to come here was two things: birthright citizenship, and once they got past the Border Patrol, they were home free. That they needed to put an extensive effort into interior enforcement. We knew, or my National Association of Former Border Patrol Officers, which comprised about 6 or 7 retired chief patrol agents and a couple of chiefs of the whole Border Patrol, that interior enforcement was the key to slowing down the flow at the border. So what happened when we started closing down the border? Well, long about 1990, you could get a smuggler to take you from Nogales, Arizona to Tucson for $25. Phoenix for $35. We had 400 registered taxi cabs in Nogales.
Oh,
You only had 500 people.
Well, the city had a rule that you had to, any taxi cab had to be registered in the city, and they had to pick up their passengers inside the city limits. So we knew exactly how many registered taxi cabs they were, and they had a special license plate. It had a designation that showed it was a commercial vehicle. So when these license plates started showing up on Cadillac Coupe de Villes, Grand Marquis, Park Avenues, and 8 or 9 passengers, I got 11 one time out of a Toyota Supra. It was a major smuggling job, but it was still $25 to $35.
oh,
As we started ramping up the border security, the cost of going to Tucson went up. The U.S. attorney, let's just say their business picked up. And they sent a U.S. attorney down to ride with me, an assistant AUSA, saying that Border Patrol agents can't possibly be riding down the street and pick out an illegal alien out of a crowd just by looking at them. So we had a sidewalk sale in Nogales. I put this AUSA in the front of my Bronco and took him down Morley Avenue. We stopped and questioned 26 people. All 26 were illegal aliens. And it was like picking a specific ant out of an anthill. He said, I've seen it. I don't understand it, but I now believe it. You just know what you're looking for. I said, yeah, and they telegraph it to you. As soon as they see that green and white vehicle and the guy sitting in the front seat looking right at them, they react. They telegraph to you that you need to talk to them. So after that, their business really picked up, because the thing was, is these smugglers would be riding up Interstate 19 at 80 miles an hour. We'd pull up beside them and they wouldn't look at us. They'd have both hands on the steering wheel, white knuckled, And we kept telling them that's a dead giveaway. First of all, most Mexicans only drive with one hand on the steering wheel and slump back in the seat. If you pull up beside them, they're going to look at you. So we had to take them out on the highway. Then we told them that the smuggling was happening in the Burger King and the McDonald's. They were using two-way radios and telephones to know when we had the checkpoint on I-19 up. So we got 4 AUSAs. I think there was an FBI agent in the bunch. And they went into the McDonald's and sat down and had coffee. We had the checkpoint up. We took it down. Within 5 minutes, 20 taxis loaded and started north on I-19, which was at kilometer 25. We set the checkpoint back up. The first 11 cars were loaded with illegal aliens. We went back around on the East Frontage Road up Pendleton Drive and got 15 more carloads at a dirt crossing just north of Rio Rico. That's when, and they were all of these registered taxi cabs. That's when the AUSA started prosecuting these cab drivers and seizing the vehicle. But look at what it took to get them to do it. So what we're seeing now is what it should have taken to keep it from getting as bad as it has on the interior. And Tom Homan is doing a splendid job of showing the people what neglect does when you ignore the immigration laws. And that's essentially what happened, because the basis of the security of the American people is the economy. And that is what is under attack when people that aren't supposed to be here are chipping away and eating away at the economy and supplanting U.S. citizens. They bring wages down, among other things. Health is a problem. We used to go on the 5. You know what the 5 is? It's Fox News.
Yeah.
We go on twice a month, every month. The bad thing was we'd have to go in at 2 o'clock in the morning because of the time difference to Tucson, and then we'd be live on the 5 at 5. And the very day that we mentioned that a lot of these aliens were coming with undiagnosed diseases, they shut off the interview and never called us back. They didn't want that information out. A real problem is U.S. Public Health Service contract people outside of the United States. Well, let's just say they can be influenced. Almost every alien coming out of Central and South America should be tested for certain chronic diseases that they are not tested for.
At least they weren't tested for it the Biden era, right?
Period.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other thing is the visa scam, like in India was our biggest problem. These people, their number would come up, they'd get their meeting, and they would have contract people in India handling the paperwork. Well, they would charge the Indian people extra money just to turn over the paperwork to them so they could come to the United States and have their interview. That's not supposed to happen. But it's things like that that the State Department just overlooked. It was an inconvenience to try to deal with it. So, yeah, the State Department, I think, is also the people that started saying anybody born in the United States is a citizen. I think they're the ones that started that. But I know that in 1976, when I was at the Border Patrol Academy, I was taught that birthright citizenship was not the law. It did not cover anybody but the children of slaves. But it was government policy, and we had to adhere to it. So now he's hit birthright citizenship, which is right up there with illegal immigration, because that citizen, that illegal citizen, has the ability to create chain migration and bring X number of other aliens into the country under the family extension program. So yeah, the other thing that I learned is anything that there's some, what do you call them? Key phrases. Social justice, that means communism. Immigration reform, that means amnesty. No, I'm serious. I'm dead serious. When you hear somebody I learned that in Congress, talking to the staffers up there. Immigration reform, and you should see some of the proposals. You remember the Gang of 8 and the Gang of 14?
I was going to say the Gang of 8. That was their favorite words, right?
Yeah. Immigration reform. John McCain was the leader of that pack. Yeah. Lindsey Graham was his elbow buddy.
Yeah, and they sucked in Marco.
Yeah, I had some long conversations with Jeff Sessions people about that. And Jeff Sessions was a real immigration warrior. I mean, he really was. But he was one of these low-key people. You know, you didn't see him on TV and jumping up and down or much in committee, but he networked. And so did Coburn. Coburn was good. There were several congressmen that were good. Jason Chavis was great from Utah. He was, that was one of the few people I ever talked to that really understood the problem, without me talking to him. So all I did was verify what he'd already gleaned.
Well, bottom line is you support Trump's banning birthright citizenship.
It's against the law.
Yeah, right.
He was right. He was right to bring it to the forefront.
Yeah.
And the Supreme Court actually kicked the can down the road because the law is clear.
Yeah.
All you got to do is go back to the original intent, the debate in the Senate. When the law was actually passed, it was children of slaves. There were no Mexicans jumping the border in 1860.
Yeah.
1868, I think it was actually. Yeah. But it took them a while to pass that. But it was strictly for the children born to slaves after the Civil War.
Yeah.
Had nothing to do with anybody else.
And that's going to come up again in their, at the Supreme Court. They kick the can down the road, but they're going to have to handle it someday. And for now, the EO is in place for now, right?
I don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah.
I think that there's going to have to be a case, and they're going to have to run it back through the Supreme Court. Mm-hmm. That's my guess, because they definitely kicked the can down the road. The law is clear. How can they say somebody crossing the border illegally, child born here, is a United States citizen when that was not an issue? The only issue they had was the slaves having children in the United States. Essentially, it was Virginia after the Civil War. And the largest slaveholder in the United States was a black man.
So, Jeff, you're up.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you good. Yeah.
All right. So I've been thinking about this while you guys were talking. And I really think, in my mind, I do agree with immigration and all this, but I think it all comes under one umbrella of America First. And I think that's Trump's guiding principle is America first. And you do have some breakaway groups, such as the Tucker Carlson wing. And again, I like him, but I think he's off on this, thinking that, Trump has betrayed the America first by, bombing Iran or changing their tune with NATO and against Russia. But I would disagree. I think the guiding principle of America first, we don't want to start any new wars, but we also don't want to let Iran have a nuclear bomb. And that's his guiding principle. And I think he navigated that minefield very well on how to do it and support Israel in what they're trying to do, but also make sure that it's in our interest that we pinprick, it's not a pinprick when you drop 30,000-pound bombs, but get in there and surgically do what we have to do and get out the best we can. And I think he weighed the risk there very well, putting America first and getting NATO to step up and have them recognize that Russia's a greater threat to them than Russia is to us. So they need to pay their fair share and start to move that ball in that direction to where we're supporting it, but they're paying for it. And of course, the immigration issues that we've talked about, trying to navigate the interest rates so that we can handle our national debt better. The tariffs, although I disagree the constitutionality and how he's doing it, I know still America first is the guiding principle he used. So I think overall, that's what I think he's doing. And I think he picked the correct cabinet members, press secretary, all to execute on that vision. So overall, I think that's, what he's done the best.
Okay, so you think that America First is in the forefront?
I do. And I think it's his guiding principle. And I think just because you're getting involved in international disputes does not mean you've betrayed that. I think the way he's doing it is trying to be minimalist where he can and applying the correct pressure where he feels he has to in order to protect America's interest, safety, security, and economic viability. Yes.
Yeah, I can agree with that. So we had some things go on in locally around the country, some different things happening, various interesting ICE arrests around the country. I wanted to ask about Arizona and the Colt Cafe and what you guys know about that. I'm sure Ken heard about it because he was probably surprised to hear ICE working up in Prescott.
Yeah, but I don't know anything more than what came out in the public media.
So they haven't put anything else out.
Yeah, no, I don't have any insights beyond what was done publicly, but apparently the owners had some other businesses going on that were connected or fed into or from the restaurant workers. So pretty interesting.
Yeah, they actually raided they said they had a restaurant, Ken, down in Alabama that they also raided at the same time. So I don't know if they were in other states. There was one.
But there was another business going on, and I can't remember what business.
There was a Colt Inn or something. There was one in Cottonwood too. That they raided. So and it's interesting. There was an employee that they interviewed, a real young kid that said, I worked for him a couple years ago. And he said, well, I didn't see anything wrong. They were really nice people. I said, yeah, you're going to know about the inner workings of the business when you're running around as a gopher in the restaurant. Right? You're going to learn all about those people. So it was really kind of funny that they interviewed the kid, right? But it's like when they interview a neighbor, when some guy gets charged with murder, and then they ask the neighbor about him and say, I thought he was a nice guy. Yeah. He watered his flowers every morning and and he drove down the block okay. So I don't know. He seemed like a good guy to me, right? So
Better than
Don-
my friends.
yeah,
Don, I need to interject something.
sure.
Kind of goes with what Jeff and Ken were just talking about. Accidentally, a police officer, a rookie police officer in Tempe, Arizona, on a traffic stop, got an inside to a drug smuggling operation associated with a restaurant there. And in the investigation, it was proven that the cartels were bringing drugs across the border at Nogales, transporting them to people that worked at this restaurant before they went north. In the investigation, it was discovered there were 3 additional pipelines through Tempe, Arizona, taking drugs north associated with smugglers in Nogales, Sonora. Okay. When they shut down the border, when they really amped it up and started doing interior enforcement at the same time, in other words, they were picking up these people that had their final orders of deportation and hadn't left. Instead of $25 to go to Tucson, it was $500. Phoenix was $1,000. It's now $5,000 to Phoenix. But the cartels, what we discovered, they're not going to bring their drugs in if they don't have somebody they trust on this side of the border.
Yeah.
Okay. And that trust is based on they still have family members in Mexico that they can put pressure on, that puts pressure on the person here. It's a grand extortion blackmail operation. But it has to have a legitimate business and people, I call them embedded here in the United States with cover. In other words, they're invisible. And when those 3 other smuggling operations in the Tempe is not a big place in relation to the rest of Phoenix. But there were 4 smuggling pipelines through there. None of the others, one of the 4 knew the others were there.
Wow.
So if you took out 2, you still had 2. We took out 1 and ended up with 4. Did we get them all? I don't know.
Yeah.
Doubt it.
Is that the Sinaloa cartel? Was it different cartels or the same cartel?
Yeah, it was Chapo's bunch.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, so
Okay,
I'm sure there's been a lot of big drug busts all across the country. They said back in South Carolina, they near the University of South Carolina, they busted and they got 72 kilos of fentanyl, along with, and that's a lot of fentanyl, right? That's 140 pounds, right? And then they got around over 140 pounds, and they got meth and cocaine too. So, but you know, the problem with fentanyl is they're lacing things with it, and then they're disguising it, you know, in different forms. So even in the form of prescription pills, they're finding it. So I was glad to see Trump. I think that was a big thing the other day that he signed the bill. He signed the bill to increase the penalties for dealing, selling, whatever, fentanyl. And you know, if eventually somebody dies from it, people should get the death penalty. But that might sound a little strict, but you know,
But not
Singapore doesn't have a drug problem.
yeah, that's what they do, right? They
hang them.
Yeah, they hang them. Yeah. The good old Western days. So,
Well, Tom
go ahead.
Homan came out and was talking about in the border shutdown that they had just right after Trump took over 3, 4, 5, 6 months ago, that they were paying $10,000 a person to be smuggled past the Border Patrol and into the interior. Well, it was already $5,000 before Trump took over, and the day he took over, the price doubled. I don't know what it is today.
Yeah.
But who is paying $10,000 a head to get past the Border Patrol?
Yeah.
And why? What are they doing? What are they coming here for?
Yeah. Yeah. Good question. And hopefully there aren't many of them getting in, or, that we know. There
is no way to gauge the number of gotaways.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist.
Well, you just have to close all the holes, right? Maybe the military. I thought the military was helping do that, where in the areas, especially in New Mexico, was just horrible, and the military's heavily into Mexico, and then they're down around the San Diego area. That's where they put up all the concertina wire. So
on the West Coast, they've been bringing them 300, 400 miles up the coast in boats at night.
Oh yeah, I know.
Yeah. Pangas they call them.
They're trying to get into Florida too, Zack, and
trying.
The Coast Guard is quite active, right? Especially picking up drug hauls. They've gotten hundreds of pounds of pallets of drugs.
There's a reason there's a Border Patrol Marine unit on Puerto Rico.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
They catch they work with the Coast Guard. Sometimes the Border Patrol is actually on the cutters.
Yeah.
They have dual law enforcement authority.
Sure. Well, I guess that's because they're all under Homeland now, right? So they can all intertwine with each other.
Coast Guard in time of war reverts to the Navy.
Yeah, true.
And in time of peace, it's Homeland Security. It goes Department of Defense in wartime. Right now, the Coast Guard is under Department of Defense.
Yeah. Well, that's all.
Tell you something right there.
Yeah, exactly. So when do you think there was a lot of talk, and Homan he's been pretty adamant about going after the Mexican cartels. Do you think that's going to happen anytime soon?
I think it's happening.
Going into Mexico? Or do you think they'll actually go to Mexico and military assault?
I'm going to give you an analogy.
Yeah. Go ahead, Zack.
You have a house that's totally infested with cockroaches.
Yeah.
First thing that happens when you start spraying the cockroaches is they get all excited and start running in 1,000 different directions. Little by little, you're able to separate some and poison them good and kill them. And then the next thing you know, when you bury that one, 2 more pop up and run off. That's what it's like with the cartels. Nobody has any idea what their infrastructure is like in the United States.
Yeah.
Now, let me give you another little tidbit here. One of the main smuggling corridors on the northern border is the Great Lakes. I was told by Border Patrol agents retired that the Border Patrol was aware of that. And they put cameras, surveillance type cameras that were pretty powerful. They could tell the difference between the female and the male at 12 miles. So they could pick up a boat at night coming across the Great Lakes in time to anticipate where the boat was going to land on the U.S. side. Now, those northern Border Patrol stations are very lightly manned, very few people. And it put a strain on them to put people out there at night to respond to the activity these cameras were seeing, to the point that they couldn't respond to it. They were unable to expand manpower to the extent they could deal with it. So they took down the cameras. Problem solved.
What problem, right? Yeah, that doesn't sound like a very smart move, though. Maybe
turned in a report one night. 315 got away, aliens. Came in the next morning because we swapped over from night shift to day shift, midnight shift to day shift. And the station report comes out at 7 o'clock in the morning. Well, day shift comes in at 6. I got the report after day shift was gone to the field, and it showed 0 gotaways. I know 315 were reported because I did the report. So I took this intel report to the agent in charge and said, "Hey, what is this?" I said, "I turned in 315 gotaways that we saw and cut sign on, and the report today says 0. He says, "Oh yeah, I believe you. I believe you had 315 gotaways. The problem is those numbers are unacceptable."
So ignoring it is acceptable.
0 is acceptable. I didn't complain about that.
Yeah.
But there was a point there. Let me give you some basics to that. When employer sanctions went in, we were catching aliens in McAllen, Texas, that had walked all the way from Houston. Walked from Houston, Texas we were catching them at Edinburgh, walking down 281. They said they couldn't get work. Nobody would hire them. Places they'd worked for decades weren't hiring them. We weren't catching anybody crossing the border. It just shut down. It became a palpable fear that employer sanctions was going to work the Border Patrol out of a job. And what's the biggest fear any bureaucrat has? A cut in his budget. A cut in his budget. Now, were the agents in the field complicit in that? No. They still reported the numbers. They still caught everybody they could. They took care of the ranchers. We would get calls about these people southbound breaking into houses, mostly taking food. Because they didn't have any money to buy it. They used it all going to Houston. So I started carrying food in my patrol vehicle and 6 gallons of water so that I could feed and water them while I took them to the border.
Give them a ride, right? Feed them and
give them a ride.
Yeah.
And they were glad to get it.
I'll bet. Yeah. So what was going on that they weren't hiring people, Zach? Was that
employer sanctions?
Okay.
You know, the I-9 program?
Yeah. And they were enforcing it.
Yeah. Well, they got around it. What they did was they started providing false identification.
Okay.
And the employers were saying, well, we're not fraudulent document experts. You know, they show us this card. It looks like it's good. We accept it. We make a copy of it and put it with their I-9 application. The only people that are going to catch this is you, INS, when you come to check our I-9 applications.
Yeah.
And so that's what they're doing now. And some of these big meat processors in particular were going into Mexico and recruiting people to come to the border, and they were taking them to their meat processing plants throughout America.
Sure.
And providing them the false ID before they ever crossed the border.
Yeah. Well, they were probably setting all that up in that operation they had down in Panama, right? Where the NGOs were working to get them up here, and probably
best I could tell, these large multi corporations had their own smuggling operation.
Yeah, they probably did. Yeah. We had people in Florida. I mean, Florida enforces very adamant about the I-9 thing, but we've had some busts here in Florida that ICE has made. We had one here in the Villages, construction workers, where they picked up a bunch of them and surprised everybody. And they particularly have a problem in Orlando. They're doing a lot of work down in Orlando, which is a big kind of a center of Florida liberal stronghold as far as government people go, and they're the ones that are doing the most complaining about alligator Alcatraz. So, whatever. But if you don't enforce it, and they're going to find ways to get around it. And I'm also hearing, Zach, that some of the Republicans, there are some Republicans, I don't know if it's senators or congressmen, that are pushing real hard that word that you hate as far as farm workers go. But I don't know where that's going to go, because the administration says that's not going to happen now. So.
Well, it's a simple solution, the same solution they did back in the 1950s and 60s.
Right.
They
Yeah.
give them a Bracero card.
Yeah.
And the hospitality workers, they give them an H visa for 180 days.
Yeah.
179 days. Same thing with the Braceros. Give them 179 days. They have to go back to their country. They go to the embassy that services their hometown in Mexico and pick up 40% of their wages in person.
Okay.
That makes sure they don't stay beyond the 179 days, and 40% of their wages is waiting for them in cash at the U.S. Embassy in Mexico.
There you go.
They're going to go back to Mexico.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You bet. Yeah.
The same thing with the H worker.
Yeah.
To get their visa renewed, they have to go to the embassy, get it stamped, and come back. But they have to leave the United States within 179 days.
I like that
Piece
plan.
of
That's
cake.
good. Yeah.
Seems to make sense.
Yeah. Well,
That's why it's not implemented.
Yeah.
They can't find a way to scam it.
Yeah. Well, they're always going to want that 40% of the money. So.
Yeah, cash.
So listen, guys. I'm going to change the subject a little bit. Any final comments on? Now, Paul, I really want to thank you for sending that video with Glenn Beck. That was a very enlightening video, and it was really good, I thought. And I don't know if the other guys got a chance to watch it or not. But
Tell us about it. Tell us about it, Rick.
Well, go ahead, Paul. You tell them about it.
Glenn Beck had a special this morning, and he was discussing the president's, and I think this was his first, not tweet, but Truth Social,
yeah.
Letter about the Epstein thing, about that it was a hoax and it was a product of the DNC, just like the Steele dossier and Russia, and what's her name? Anyway, and so he went over on his blackboard there, and he had 6 justifications, if you will. And of course, the first one was he's holding back. He's made the statement that there is no list and it's a hoax, and just quit worrying about it. And the first one was because he's on the list. And Glenn kind of nailed that when he said if he'd been on the list, it would come out the first when he walked down the escalator.
Yeah, we all said that last week. So
yeah. And then I'd have to look at it again to get the details. But basically, he went through 6 different reasons why he thought he was doing this. and his leaning, if I read it right, was basically it's part of what you're talking about, Jeff. Make America first. That this is a distraction, and he's trying to get it off the radar screen so that he can continue with his program.
Yeah.
Is that how you saw it, Don?
I think so. I think what he was trying to explain is that the file itself, there may be some things in the file that are I want to say prosecutable, but those things that are in there now may have included stuff that the Democrats over the years have inserted in the file and made up. Okay.
Yeah, that was kind of the other thing.
They've created
no chain of custody.
Yeah, there's no chain of custody, so they've created stuff in that file now that even may implicate Trump, and nobody knows for sure, and he doesn't want people to get fooled by that. So
this is we gave Trump a lot of compliments at the beginning, but this is definitely a failure on his administration to have somebody like Glenn Beck, explain this to everybody. There's no reason why Trump can't come out and do a much better job of explaining why he's not doing what he's doing, instead of just doing what he is doing, which is not explaining very well. And look, the Republicans made a lot of hay off this, and to regain the people's trust, even though, there's bigger fish to fry, like the Ukraine-Russia war, like interest rates, but it all starts with being a good steward on the small things and doing what, if he didn't promise to do, certainly those working for him said that they would do, is be transparent on things like this. And I think he's really going to shoot himself in the foot, even with some of his most ardent supporters, if he doesn't have a better answer than he has. Because it's about trust. We want to get a lot of things done, but in the end, if we know somebody's shooting straight with us, we're going to give them a lot more rope and leeway to do what they need to do, and it's going to help us a lot more than if we're like, okay, somebody's compromised here. Maybe it's not Trump, but who is it in the administration? Because all those things could be true that Glenn Beck's saying, and still, somebody's hiding the weenie somewhere, somehow. So Bondi wasn't telling the whole truth and screwed up, or somebody's hiding something.
Yeah, the last thing Glenn said is that he said he did a special show on that today, and when he went through this whole thing and went through, like Paul said, Trump's Truth Social post, his first post, and he used words in there that he particularly identified as interesting because he implicated, the Democrats, Obama, Biden, Comey, all the same old players that came up with all the Russian hoax and Hillary and all of them. Any one of them could have been involved in this Epstein thing and putting information in there. So I don't know. The last thing he said on his show is that he's going to go away and think about all this because he doesn't know what to make of it all, but he's not going to talk about it anymore. And that's what he said. So he's done talking about it, and he knows that some people are going to be unhappy with me for saying what I said, whatever. But anyway, so that's where it led to. But I thought it was a pretty good good
I'll
presentation
go back and
summary.
listen to that. But there's answers that the administration needs to come up with, or this isn't going to sit well. I mean, look, I've got really good friends who are just ardent Trump supporters that this has turned them off, and they'll still support Trump, but it is a breach of trust.
Yeah.
It is. It's a breach of trust.
This is Ken.
Go ahead.
Address that.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Ken.
I listened to or watched the link, the program that Glenn Beck did. Thank you, Paul. And I can believe and accept all of I thought there were 5. He said there were 6, but they were on 2 chalkboards. I can believe all of the possibilities that might explain the 5 or 6 scenarios that Glenn said might explain why they're not releasing this until you don't release the information. And I can believe that there was a clear lack of custody and that there's no way to tell whether something in the file is legitimate or not. I can believe that's true until you tell me you're not going to show me the information that you looked at that allowed you to come to that conclusion. I can believe that, there was nothing in there that directly implicates Trump, or the Democrats would have released it 4 years ago.
Yeah.
I can believe that completely until you tell me that I'm not going to release the information so that you can see why we came to the conclusions we came to. I think this is a huge failure on Trump.
I agree. I think it is.
Let me throw something in, Jeff. The point I would make there is grand jury indictment transcripts are pretty held close to the chest, because sometimes in the grand jury process, people say things about people that have no basis in fact, have no truth, and therefore they seal them and put them away so that people can't be taking some hearsay evidence that somebody who was trying to cover their own butt might have thrown into the grand jury process. And so what I'm hearing, and again, I agree with you. I'd say let the hide go with the hair. That would be happy with me, and then everybody'd have their own conclusion. But by the same token, some lives could be ruined that were just not part of this program. And
even if my name was on that list, even if I had gone to wherever this Pleasure Island is, which I did not.
So you say now, Ken?
I did not either. I did not either.
Even if my name was on a list that said I went to this island, I would want transparency over, you can't see what we've looked at and concluded that there's nothing to look for or there's nothing to look at.
Yeah, well, look.
The lack of transparency negates every other thing that they are saying.
Yes, and that's why it's so important, even though it's not important, it is. Because it's all about the truth.
I agree completely with Trump. Jeffrey Epstein, why are we talking about Jeffrey Epstein? I could give a flying flip about Jeffrey Epstein. If I'm concerned about something, it's dozens or scores or hundreds of young underage girls.
Victims, yeah.
That were victims of what may have happened there.
Sure.
And they deserve justice. I could give a flying flip about Jeffrey Epstein.
Yep.
Yeah, but by the same token, Ken, those young girls are going to be named in that thing unless there's a way to let it go and redact it properly. But
I think
their lives.
They've had years to redact that.
They did redact a lot of the stuff that was released. So
let me kick something in here.
Yeah, go ahead, Zach. Let me say one more thing before you start, Zach. I just want to say that I want everybody to remember that Epstein was convicted in Florida, and he spent 13 months in jail, and that was because of association with a 15-year-old. There were 4 other 15-year-olds that were never named publicly, and that is all still sealed in those court proceedings in that grand jury. So he was arrested and he was punished. Probably not to the extent that people wanted it, but how do we go and get justice for those victims? How does that happen? Right? like Paul said, if a lot of this stuff is hearsay, how are you going to get justice for him? So
Well, look,
you get into those files, it might be a really ugly. I mean, it could get really ugly, nasty, just terrible. And I don't know if people really want to hear about this stuff.
But
Yeah.
really, look, and that's fine.
I mean,
but,
would we?
but we should have had the foresight then to say 2 years ago, instead of using this as hay that we can make hay with against the Democrats. Look,
I don't think a lot of people voted for Trump because of the
No.
Epstein stuff.
no, but look, you heard Bongino on there about it, Bondi on there. You heard Kash Patel talking about it. Almost everybody on the right wants to know what's going on here because it's a travesty against young women in our country. And the fact that he was able to do this, and where did he get his money? There's a lot of questions that aren't answered. And we are, you don't spin people up about this. And nobody can tell me we weren't spun up on the right about this.
Oh, and maybe,
We were.
but think about this, Jeff. Maybe, just perhaps, Bondi and Bongino and even Kash Patel. Maybe the facts they're talking. Maybe they didn't know all the facts, or maybe they
Exactly. Well, then
maybe
come
they
out with
only
the
knew
facts.
what
Yeah,
they thought
then
were
let
the
them-
facts, right?
Then let us see the files that you saw that allowed you to come to the conclusion that there's
Right.
nothing here.
Or
I
at
can
least
reflect
draft
the
a
thing.
letter, not a tweet, a letter that is written that really explains to the MAGA base why we're not doing this. Because look, there was no basis on Russia collusion. It was all made up. There was no basis on Hunter Biden's laptop not being real. It was real. There were no basis on all these things. There is basis about Epstein being a child pornographer
he was-
and an abuser.
Yeah, he was convicted of it. So
Yes.
yeah.
So when you throw all this up and then reverse in a day, and you don't expect to have kickback, that's crazy. It's crazy.
The other question is, how do you show this? Do you just print this in the newspaper or put it on a website, or the evidence, or how would you present it?
You think it through.
Yeah, which they didn't do.
Well,
Which
if you
do.
give me just a minute, maybe I can shine a little light on this.
Go ahead, Zach.
I've got a 4:30 hard drop, so I'll have to watch this part, Zach. I apologize.
Okay.
But I appreciate you guys.
If you will remember, when Trump came out and challenged the newsman on questioning Epstein, and Bondi started to interject and stopped until he recognized her and let her explain. That was a setup. That was pre-rehearsed. Okay, now you got Bongino saying he's going to quit, and you got Patel saying he's going to quit, and you got everybody pointing the finger at Bondi, and the press is starting to get after Bondi. Well, why? Because they're scared of him. Why are they scared of him? They put Ghislaine Maxwell in jail, and that grand jury testimony and the trial testimony was sealed. But because the jury convicted her, thousands of eyewitnesses and victims had come forward. This is the real evidence. Eyewitnesses are the best evidence you can get. And they're still processing these eyewitnesses. And because Bondi is the person that can make this happen, that's why she's getting all the flack. People are pointing at her. It's become an emotional issue.
Yeah.
You're not watching what's actually happening.
Yeah.
It's the facts are coming out, and they haven't collated them all, put them together to where they can prosecute.
Right.
And anything that they put out now might endanger the prosecution they have in hand at this minute. That's most likely what's going on. Plus, we know the guy that was in that press conference was not Donald Trump.
Oh, that's
Well,
great.
anyone who has questioned whether elections were done correctly or with integrity is guilty of this. This is the same excuse in reverse. When we hear election departments in counties or states all over the country say, we did the election right, there's nothing to see here. But they then stand up in court and tell the judge, don't release the ballot images, don't release the ballots, don't let anybody look at our log files, don't let anybody look at anything having to do with the election, because all we want to just tell you is that we did the election right. This is the biggest hypocrisy I have heard in a long time, that now some of these same people are saying, well, they're telling us there's nothing there, so we just have to believe it because it's our buddies telling us.
Well, I'm not saying there's nothing there.
No, I'm not challenging you, Zach. I'm
not saying that. I'm saying that they're withholding that pending collecting this new evidence.
Then tell us that's what you're doing. No, don't tell us there's nothing here, we're not going to release anything.
Well, that might jeopardize the lives of the potential witnesses that are coming forward.
Then, well, I believe there's plenty of time for some of the evidence to have been mature enough and dealt with in a now multi-year process for some of the evidence to be released. And yes, if there's other situations that they're working on, continue to work on those. But to make the kind of hay over this issue that Trump and the Republicans have made for a couple of years now or more, and then to say there's nothing there, it is so hypocritical.
Well, it becomes an emotional issue, and you're unable to think beyond what you're reacting to emotionally.
Guys, I got to run. I got a 4:30 meeting.
Okay, Paul, thanks for joining.
Hey,
Yeah,
thank you all.
we're up against the clock, and I know, Ken, I hope you get your internet fixed.
So too.
Zach, thanks for joining us. Good to see you again. Always good to see you guys. Thanks, everybody, for joining 4 Men in America. We will continue this conversation next week. I hope you all can join us, and I hope you guys can join us, Ken and Zach and Jeff and Paul. And you all have a good week, and we will see you next week. God bless America, and see you later.
Thank
Adios.
you. God bless America.
If you want to change the world, start off by making your bed. If you make your bed every morning, you will have accomplished the first task of the day. It will give you a small sense of pride, and it will encourage you to do another task, and another, and another. And by the end of the day, that one task completed will have turned into many tasks completed. Making your bed will also reinforce the fact that the little things in life matter. If you can't do the little things right, you'll never be able to do the big things right. And if by chance you have a miserable day, you will come home to a bed that is made, that you made. And a made bed gives you encouragement that tomorrow will be better.
Maxwell.
Yeah?
You're home.
Oh, cool. Thanks, Mrs. A.